Mr. President, in the weeks and months ahead, maybe even for years to come, we're going to be debating President Obama's latest global climate proposal. It's crucial that this debate be based on crystal clear facts and not clouded by political ideologies on either side. So starting today, I plan to deliver a series of speeches on energy. And I plan to start with coal, which I know is no surprise to you, which is America's greatest energy resource. I think it's important for me to lay out the facts about coal for several reasons. Number one, coal is America's most abundant, most reliable, and most affordable source of energy, and it will be for decades to come. Number two, the coal industry and its supporters have been falsely portrayed by opponents as monsters that have done something wrong, that they value money over health and the environment. And number three, I think that American public has some basic misconceptions about coal and just how important it is to keeping our economy growing and our nation secure. I think that because I was recently asked, if coal is so controversial, then why do we as a nation just use more electricity? It shows basically people don't understand where the electricity comes from. When you turn the lights on, over 40% of the people depend on it. Most of this industry in this country has been built on the backs of coal and what coal has produced. I didn't know how to respond to that when that person said that. It was one of those rare moments that I had a loss for words. Just imagine you're standing there. Why would you continue to keep mining coal? Why don't you just use more electricity? I guess what I should have said was this. When you surf the internet, you watch TV, you play a video game, you charge a cell phone, you turn on your air conditioner, or plug in your hybrid car to charge it, you're using electricity. Follow me, and there's a good chance that electricity came from coal. Coal has a distinguished past. In fact, you can't tell the history of America without telling the history of coal. It fueled the industrialization of America in the 19th and early 20th centuries, making us what we remain today, the richest and most powerful nation in history. Coal also has a distinguished present. It is responsible for 37.4% of all electricity generated in the United States today, more than any other source of energy. Just as importantly, coal has a distinguished future ahead of it. The U.S. Department of Energy says it will remain the dominant fuel for electricity generation in our country at least through 2040. Despite so many attempts to kill it, coal is critical to meeting the future energy needs of America. In other words, we can't make it without coal. Coal has the longest and perhaps the most varied history of all fuels. It has been used for heating since the caveman. It was once prized as the best stone in Britain by Roman invaders who actually carved jewelry out of it. Native Americans used it long before the New World settlers to bake their pottery. And blacksmiths have used coal to forge tools and all kinds of metal objects at least since the Middle Ages. In fact, a deep, rich vein of coal runs through all of human history, not just American history. Given all the blame it gets for carbon pollution today, it's worth remembering that coal was universally regarded as a carbon treasure. It is difficult to exaggerate the importance of coal to both the American and British economies in the 19th and 20th centuries. Coal was the fuel that fired the Industrial Revolution. In the popular imagination, the Industrial Revolution is cotton mills, railways, steamboats, engines, and factories. But at the core of the Industrial Revolution was our use of energy. And the energy that powered the mills, the railroads, the steam engines, and the factories was coal. In fact, when James Watt invented the steam engine, he used coal to make the steam to run his engine, making it possible for machinery to do work previously done by humans and animals. But perhaps the most important role coal played in the Industrial Revolution was in the making of steel, the predominantly building material of the time. And in 1861, when the country was torn by civil war, factories used coal to produce steel for the guns, the bullets, the cannons that preserved this Union. By 1875, Coke, which is made from coal, replaced charcoal as the primary fuel for iron blast furnaces to make steel. With the rise of iron and steel, coal production increased by 300% during the 1870s and early 1880s. By the early 1900s, coal was supplying more than 100,000 coke ovens, mostly in western Pennsylvania and northwestern West Virginia. In the 1880s, coal was first used to generate electricity for factories and homes. And long after homes were being lighted by electricity produced by coal, many of them continued to have furnaces for heating and stoves for cooking that were fueled by coal. I can remember as a young person in my grandparents' home, I'd always stoke the fire at night and bank up the coal so it would be warm all night long. Of course, political, economic, and intellectual conditions also contributed to the industrialization of America. Representative government, capitalism, and the free expression of new ideas all played their part. But at the heart of this sweeping industrial revolution, a profound transition from hand production to machines was because of coal. The first coal miners in the American colonies were likely farmers who dug coal from beds exposed on the surface and sold it by the bushel. In 1748, the first commercial coal production began from mines around Richmond, Virginia. By the late 1700s, coal was being mined on what was known as Coal Hill. Now it's known as Mount Washington in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The early settlers there used the coal to heat their homes, but they also carried it in canoes across the Monongahela River to provide fuel for the military garrison at Fort Pitt. Coal was first discovered in what is now West Virginia by German explorer John Peter Sally in 1742 in what is now Boone County. I have to wonder how hard it was to discover coal in West Virginia because coal occurs in 53 of West Virginia's 55 counties. As early as 1810, residents of Wheeling, once a part of Virginia and now the treasured part of West Virginia, used coal from nearby mines to heat their homes. By 1817, coal began to replace charcoal as a fuel for the numerous salt furnaces of the Kanawha River. But it wasn't until the mid-1800s that there was extensive mining in West Virginia. The coal fields in southern West Virginia opened up in the 1870s, and many of them owed their success to coming of the Chesapeake and Ohio Railway. Of course, you can't talk about coal without talking about coal miners, the bravest and most patriotic men and women that I have ever met in my life. A lot of Americans only know the TV and movie stereotypes of coal miners, so they don't always give miners the respect that they deserve. The fact is they deserve the same respect as our military veterans, because they go down into the mines for the same reasons that our veterans took up arms to protect this country. It is not just a job, it's a calling, it's a way of life, even an act of patriotism in the defense of this great country. And to tell you the truth, most of the coal miners I meet in West Virginia are also military veterans. Coal miners are vital to the security of this nation. That was never so clear than in World War II, when Franklin Roosevelt nationalized America's coal mines. It was that important to us. In a fireside chat in 1943, explaining his actions, Franklin Delano Roosevelt said this, and I quote, "A stopping of the coal supply, even for a short time, would involve a gamble with the lives of American soldiers and sailors and the future security of our whole people." That was the President of the United States in 1943. A stopping of the coal supply is still a gamble with the future security of our country. My own family first came to America to work in the mines back in the turn of the 20th century. Growing up in a small coal mining town of Farmington, I saw just how proud and courageous all these miners were. And in 1968, after the horrific Farmington No. 9 mine disaster that claimed 78 victims, including my uncle, I experienced the healing strength of coal mining families. Working conditions and living conditions were difficult for miners in the early days, but they did their best to make a living and provide for their families. They fought and struggled for everything, first alone, then as a union member, led by the legendary John L. Lewis. John L. Lewis, the line of labor. Lewis pleaded the case of the miners in what was once described as the thundering voice of the captain of a mighty host, demanding the rights to which free men are entitled. If you ever have any doubt about the courage of coal miners, read the scribbled last words of one of the miners who died in a mining accident at Sago, West Virginia in 2006. I was governor at that time. In the pitch black of the mine, the miner, Mr. Martin Toller Jr., wrote, "Tell all I'll see them on the other side. I love you. It wasn't bad, just went to sleep." Can you imagine? They were all sitting in that area knowing what their fate would be. From the very beginning, coal mining was tough and demanding. It still is. But today it also is safe and efficient, and it's even high-tech. In the 1880s, coal miners were learning how to use mules and donkeys to haul coal through the mines. Today, they are training in robotics, automation, and positioning technologies. And the pay is good, starting out around $60,000 a year, sometimes even starting as much as $80,000 a year. Coal mining provides more than 20,000 direct jobs in West Virginia at an average wage above $79,000 per person, generating more than $1.6 billion in income. But it also accounts for another 25,500 indirect jobs in West Virginia. And the most recent available data show the economic impact of the coal industry in West Virginia equals nearly $20 billion a year. $20 billion a year in my little state. To the miner, coal is the energy business. So they are mystified when they hear talk out of Washington about getting rid of coal, even as we continue to try to achieve energy independence. They can't understand why their own government tries to kill the good, well-paying jobs that support their families and provide the energy this country needs. And I can't understand it either. I really can't. It doesn't make any sense. Coal is America's most significant source of electricity, and it will continue to be for decades to come. The United States holds the largest estimated recoverable reserves of coal in the world, enough to last nearly 300 years. Coal currently generates almost 40% of electricity in America, and our own Energy Department reports that our country will get 37% of its energy from coal at least through 2040. So it's obvious that removing it in our energy mix will have disastrous consequences for our economy, which is still trying to get back on both feet. We need an all-of-the-above energy policy that uses every energy source we have: hydroelectric, nuclear, biomass, renewables, fossil fuels, including coal. You can't tell the history of America without telling the history of coal. And you can't plan an energy future for America without coal. To put it in a nutshell, Mr. President, there is 8 billion tons of coal being burnt in the world today. 1 billion tons of coal is being burnt in America. For those who are saying that we are destroying the climate, the global climate, because of the coal that we're burning, we burn it better and cleaner than most any nation on earth. I am not a climate scientist, but I do know that the ocean currents and the wind currents do not start and stop in North America. I do know that. And I know if you stop burning every ton of coal in America thinking you're going to save the climate of the world, when there's 7 other billion tons of coal being burnt, and it's growing faster than any time in history, we have oceanfront property in West Virginia at a bargain for you. That's what we're dealing with today. It doesn't make any sense at all.